listening to the Ball Talk podcast with me, Ryan Bailey. This podcast is brought to you by Adapt Athletic Performance and Therapy. Head over to Instagram and give them a follow at adapt_clinic. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe or follow button as well. Without further ado, let's get straight into the podcast. Right, so this is episode number 59 of the Ball Talk podcast, and as always brought to you by Adapt Athletic Performance and Therapy. And today we're doing something a bit different. We're back to a 4-person Zoom screen. Today I'm joined by Michael Moyles, Damien Mulligan and Joe Keane, 3 of the members of the Crossmolina 2001 All Ireland Senior Football Championship winning team. Lads, how are you all getting on?
Good.
How are you?
All good now. Lads, we'll jump straight in. It's 20 years. So today's Saturday we're recording. So yesterday, of course, is 20 years since the All-Ireland final. Things that come back in your mind, I'm sure everyone remembers, Tom Nallen lifting the cup, that image of Kieran McDonald holding the ball up in the air after the game down on his knees. I'll go to you first, Michael. Is there anything that sticks out in your memory from the day?
I suppose the bus journey there was kind of new to an awful lot of fellas. We were getting a guard escort from Maynooth, and I was sitting in the back with Joe Donnelly, and I for some reason, the tracksuit rolled up above my knees, and I just said, I just feel good today. I feel like something like it's good. And he was like, that's good. Joe would always be there to kind of encourage you anyway. But in the dressing room beforehand, we were kind of ready to go. And I remember watching Joe, because Joe was across me, watching Joe and all that. And somebody came in and says, the hurling's gone to extra time. When you're getting ready and you're getting up for a game, and next thing the hurling goes for extra time, is an extra half an hour. So I went down to the physio table again, and there was nobody on the physio table, obviously, at that stage. So I kind of put a towel over my head, and I fell asleep for 10 minutes. Joe Donnelly actually came up and kind of tickled my feet to wake me up, and I kind of got started because I was trying to relax myself, but I kind of got a small bit too relaxed. But I always thought that was a kind of something that you shouldn't have done until we had a talk lately with the sleep therapist, Tom Coleman from Foxford. And he said, no, anything under 20 minutes is excellent before a game because it relaxes you. But the game itself was kind of a whirlwind thing that we tried to keep in touch with them for the first half, and in the second half we just started turning the screw and there's no answer, and they started getting frustrated with each other. My memories at the end, very, very quickly, Tom lifting the cup, but I remember Noel Ryan, and Noel Ryan was with us for a while, and probably missed out being on a panel for that, but he came on and got onto the pitch and his 2 arms in the air and he was just roaring, crying with happiness. It just showed the signs of the man that he there was no, what about me? He was just happy for the panel of players that he knew. I always remember that, him coming onto the field kind of with a big smile on his face. So there's loads of great memories, and they're just the ones that stand out when you ask firstly, I suppose.
Jamie, anything that stands out for yourself?
Okay, I suppose the bits that really stand out was really, I suppose, the frantic start of the game itself, and the real pace that the game started with. I suppose All Ireland final, you expect that out in Grove Park and the turf that you were on. Just up and down the park, it took us a while to settle. Was the biggest thing that I suppose stood out for me. While we had some good ball, we kind of got turned over easy enough. But I suppose the settling point was, and the 2 lads that's on the call was involved, and it was they went 2 up. I think Corky got a second score, I think, from a good save from Barry, and Barry found Moyles out on the Cusick stand wing, and he kicked it into Moff. I think broke down. I think Johnny Rep and then into Joe Keane. I think Joe, you got the first score, and that correct? I think that's kind of was the settling point for us. But that first half, the real thing we played relatively okay, while we were kind of a little bit under the cosh from Nemo from times. But I think it was our loose defender more so than anything else, and our discipline at the back. I have to put my hand up as well. I'm sure if Tom Nallen was here as well, he'd put his hand up as well. Our discipline at the back, we gave them a couple of soft enough frees. I think Corky got 4 from frees in the first half. And kind of that was probably the gap at half time. 3 or 4 at halftime, whatever it was. And I think our discipline a little bit in the first half let us down, but that second half performance was, whoa, that first 20 minutes, second half, they couldn't let a hand on us. We just bombarded them with pace and power and accuracy, and it's phenomenal to look at. I wasn't involved in much of that, any of that good football, but just sit back and look at it. It was just phenomenal. Look at the way the guys just took the pace to the game, and good hand pass, good kick pass, and great scores, and just they couldn't live with us. Okay. towards the end, I suppose, we probably, Cork had a chance to equalise the game. I think it would be robbery if they got the opportunity. But they got the opportunity, got the goal beforehand. But look, we held on at the very, very end, and that was all about. And look, they're the big points, I suppose, from my perspective of the game itself.
And Joe, yourself, anything that stands out in particular?
Look, there's a lot of same stuff to the lads, so I'll go somewhere different with things. In terms of stuff that stood out to me was that in the dressing room, Tom was in full flow with his speech. Now, Tom was a phenomenal speaker, as a captain, and he'd always demand of himself first, and then he'd start looking at you and start demanding off you. Do you know what I mean? And I remember some of his words were like, "There'll be no one out here to save you," And the knock on the door came midway through his speech, and next thing there was a shuffle and she's gone to extra time and whatever else. And I was kind of looking at Tom, and I was wondering, is he going to stop now, or is he going to keep her lit, because God knows when we're going to. But in fairness to Tom, he didn't stop, and he kept going with his speech. And there kind of was no other speech really before we went out. It was kind of just, right, it's ready to go now, lads, and away we go. We had that speech half an hour before, the big one that you'd be pushing out through the door, ready to, the famous one about Paddy made a speech, and he was so wound up, he ran into the door, didn't realise it was open, and back in his backside, apparently. Whether it's true or not, it's a great story. But, so yeah, that was, I don't know, did that do us any favours, or did it do us harm? But we definitely started slowly. And I think they were way more comfortable. They'd been at that kind of level for a good while, and they were scoring at ease in the first half. And like, we were working hard for our scores, to be honest with you. But Mully is on about that first point. I'll never forget it. And with nerves and everything else, I'd say I'm about 15 yards out kicking that score, right? In a great position. Should be a goal chance, to be honest with you. And when I saw it back on the video, I was going, oh my God. I thought I was about 40 yards out, and the posts were about 2 foot wide. That's now the nerves. Do you know what I mean? There was that edginess. And I think when Mully's on about we were sloppy, I think there was a good degree of nerves in that first half. And I think Jimmy said at half time, look, lads, we just haven't played. That's the reality. Jimmy didn't talk a lot, but when he did, it was usually on the money, be fairly succinct. And he kind of more or less said, lads, we're here now, and we kind of just didn't play in that half. And what are we going to do? Are we going to play now, or are we just going to stand looking at them? And the rest was history, I suppose.
So yeah, we've got everyone's standout memories from the game itself, and I'm going to work on my screen here, going in a anti-clockwise sort of direction. And I'm just going to go to you, Joe, first on this one. Preparation for the year. Like, was there anything in particular that you were being different about that year that maybe you hadn't done for the 4 or 5 years previous leading up to that stood to you when it came to, winning an All Ireland?
No, for me, I don't think so. To be fair, I think we were a group in development, so there was a lot of us who were fairly young, as in, there wasn't a lot of fellas over 26, 27 on the team. There was a lot of us in that early 20s bracket. And I think we were developing. And I think we'd been beaten the year before in the All Ireland semi by Nafina. And kind of that was our first taste of kind of getting into the bigger stuff. And we'd let ourselves, I'd say the boys agree, a lot of us felt we let ourselves down in that semi-final. We didn't really play. I'd say the occasion got to us and we just didn't perform. And I think we came back the year after and we kind of said, hey, we now know we can survive in this company. So I think we definitely had the bit between the teeth the year after. And we were kind of determined we were going to make some progress. And so I don't think we've done anything different. I think we're very lucky, right? I think that we did a trainer the year before, a couple of years before, with Greg Burke. And Greg had done a lot of running with us. And I think we're very fit. I think we could run all day. And when Jarlath Cunningham came in, he was unique and he was probably ahead of his time in some of the training things he done. He done a lot of what would be considered kind of plyometrics nowadays, but no one really done it. So we're very fit from good 2 years of training. And then Jarlath came in and he did a lot of plyometrics and he gave us the gears. I'd always equated to that we could go, if you were stuck in an old tight West of Ireland road, like most of us would know, and you got in a tight spot and you had to go from 5th to 3rd in the old gearbox when you just came into a tight spot and an overtake. Jarlath gave us that type of acceleration. And I think, the combination of the training with Greg the kind of a couple of years before, and then Jarlath's training and just our development as a group, we kind of knew where we could get to if we really applied ourselves. So that would be my take on it, whether, the boys might have different opinion.
Yeah, if either of you want to jump in on that, lads, from where you're speaking, so Joe, it's more of a culmination of things over time, as I said, with Greg and Jarlath, the different types of coaching, and it just kind of oiled into one.
Yeah, and we were a young group and we're developing. A lot of us, like Moyles there, I'd say Michael, I think I was 23 or 24. Moyles would have been a year younger. Rochi, Gardner, they were all 22. Do you know what I mean? 23, so we weren't an old team. Do you know what I mean? Even Mully then would be slightly the year older. Mully might be 24, 25. There was very few fellas over 27 or 28 on that team. I'd imagine Johnny and maybe Barry, potentially, well, not Barry, but maybe Johnny. So we were just coming. Do you know what I mean? I think it was in our development. So,
It's the right time. Do you want to jump in on that, Michael or Damien?
I was just thinking what Joe was saying about Jarlath. Yeah, he was well ahead of his time. And for me as a player, what I enjoyed about Jarlath was you never knew what was coming to training. You could have medicine balls, you could have 20 footballs. This was before it was all the 2 footballs in your hands and stuff like that. Jarlath was well ahead of his time, and training was enjoyable. And as Joe said, you had the likes of Mully and you had the likes of Kieran Mack and these lads who were probably a year above me anyway. I know Joe was playing with that panel as well. And they were the kind of pinnacle of what we were trying to get to. We were the age group below. I was always kind of, on the peripheral of that team. Joe was playing on that team with Mully, Liam Moffat and lads like that. Brilliant players, and they've won everything throughout. We were always kind of struggling. We won a minor league, I suppose, at minor. That was the first thing we ever won. And that was through the patience of the coach and people that were in Crossmolina at the time, great people like Greg Burke and PG Hughes and Tom McNulty and men like that. When we came to the under-21, and Joe was part of our team as well, we won an under-21A title, and there was 4 or 5 or 6 of those players that came through onto that good team that was above us. And I think the mixture of that did help. You'd like to Stephen Rochford, Colin Riley, you had Padder Gardner, Enda Lavelle, brilliant players, brilliant players adding into what was already there. And the combination of both and the combination of kind of that winning mentality came to fruition. I do think that year was a small bit different in that we went away for a week to the Canaries just after Christmas. Now, we'd already won our iconic title, I think, at that stage, but we got it with great support from people in the town supporting the club, and the club, because we got to an All Ireland semi-final the year before, send us on holidays. And there was a bit of training in it, there was a bit of socialising in it, but I definitely think things like that solidify a team and make things and there was a few lads that weren't part of the panel that came, and I remember we're staying in some apartment someplace, and it was Riley's pub at the bottom of it, and the woman that was the bartender was Julia, because it was the same as Julia and Riley's in Crossmolina. There was some, and it was just us away together doing our thing for the week. And I do think that gave us the extra few percentages, because Balahi was difficult in the semi-final, and small little things like that I think can make an awful difference. But yeah, I think Jarlath was brilliant. I think the combination, as Joe was saying, of different kind of young players that had no fear, that were used to winning, coming together, and we didn't fear anybody. We just didn't fear anybody.
Damien,
those points from the lads made. They're correct. The mixture of coaches we had coming up right up through underage, through the senior team. From my perspective, I suppose Greg Burke and Danny McDonald were part of the whole way up on the underage from my team, or from our group. And so huge credit must go to those guys. And the combination with Jarlath and Tommy, as the lad said, I think the biggest learning curve for the group as a whole would be the year prior to the Nafini game. It was a shocking performance, first of all, especially the second half performance, both individually and collectively. But we learned so much from that defeat. It was phenomenal. And we all knew then, even though Nafina didn't go on and win the All Ireland that year, we knew ourselves that, well, in my own personal opinion, we knew that we weren't going to be stopped the following year. We just had that. We're driven. We're part of a driven team. And every one of those panel of whatever, 25, 26, 27, whatever we had players, were driven. And I think that was the big thing that year that was probably, maybe, I won't say lacking previous that. I think it was the hurt from that Nafini game. it just went to everybody's hearts, and it just showed every time we went to the training pitch. We asked questions of each other. Management were there, okay, there's no doubt about it, to guide us and to manipulate us the way they wanted it. But we were driven ourselves. We asked questions of each other every training session. We didn't wait for management to ask the questions. We asked us, and we took the onus on ourselves to get better in every training session we done. And I think that's, hats off to the group of players for that. But it came from ourselves, and I think that defeat to Nafina was what drove us on that year, in my opinion.
And the drive is obvious there when you look at it. The stats here in front of me: 10 Mayo Senior Championships, 5 Mayo Senior Championships in 10 years, 3 Connacht titles, an All Ireland win, and another All Ireland final appearance. But something you mentioned on there, Damien, and I'll leave the floor open to whoever wants to put their own interpretation on this. The management team, maybe if you go back 20 years ago, there mightn't have been as many involved in a management team as there is now. But we spoke there about Greg, about Jared, about Tommy. Like, who was involved in the management team so at the time?
Well, Tommy J was the manager, and he was ably assisted by Mick Moore and Porrick Sarn, and he brought in Jared into, obviously was coaching us. Joe Donnelly then was our masseuse, practical joker, and kept us all in line with good fun and good stories. Dr. Mickey then was obviously our club doctor, and I believe that was the management team with maybe a cameraman. We couldn't really call them PJ Hughes and Greg Burke. Could you call them part of the team? Probably not. But I think that was the management team, Mikey.
Father Flynn and Howley, you would have to include into that management team, because I would put this down to, even when there was nerves there a minute beforehand, and the boys can disagree with me, this for me personally, they just made things so much easier. As a player, it was just that camaraderie with them, and just watching them and just laughing at them just took the focus off maybe overthinking things, I suppose. I would always include them in the management team as well. I don't know, Joe, do you know anybody else that we're missing out there?
No, I think we got the main protagonists. We kind of had Tommy as manager, 2 selectors in Porrick and Mick, and Charlotte was the trainer. And other people kind of came in. That was the main structure, do you know what I mean, of it. Other people came in at different stages and played their part. And it was very much as you expect, Brian. It was a club thing. And to be honest with you, probably the more successful we got, the bigger it got, as inevitably happens. And rightfully so, because when things are going well, people want to be associated with it. So, but it was unique, in terms of Tommy was very good. Tommy didn't over kind of complicate things for us as a group, Jarlath wouldn't have overcomplicated things for us as a group. Kind of, they'd pick the team and they'd trust us to go out and do our thing the majority of the time. Now, football was very different anyhow at that time in terms of, there wasn't much tactics in it as it would be now. But I think it's like a lot of things, Ryan, there's just a unique set of factors that come there. Like Gerald Cunningham, our coach, you know the front end of a football from the back end of it. And he'd tell you that himself, corner back or corner forward, he'd be going, sure, what's the difference, Joe? But, that was Gerald. He came in with totally different ideas, totally different things, no football background, but he was ahead of his time as well, probably in terms of psychology. Before there was such a thing as sports psychology, Gerald was at it, with us. And I'm sure that any of the 2 boys will tell you little bits of stories of Jarlath's kind of psychology stuff. Do you remember the day he made us, I don't know what game was it in? It was in the first year or second year where we were out playing in Connacht, and it was a semi-final or whatever it was. And he made us go down, and we used to start at our end of the field. We'd line out the full width of the field, okay, and walk down through the whole length of the field, in through the other team's warm-up, and the whole lot, and back up again. Do you remember he made us do that a few times? Just pure stuff you wouldn't, do you know what I mean? Disrupting us, fellas getting in small bits of rows with the opposition down the other end before the game started at all. So yeah, look at he was unique and he was different, and he was, he was huge. Without knowing a ridiculous amount about football, he was still a huge part of what made us successful, to be fair to him.
Yeah, I think he worked very well with Tommy J as well too. They mirrored each other as well, and Tommy J trusted him to get the sessions right and the best out of us in the sessions, and Tommy J had everything organised well from that perspective. So they worked very well with each other.
I think it was player led to a certain degree as well, and the lads allowed that. So if you go back and you're looking at that team now, and you look at the amount of boys that are involved in coaching or managing at any age group, I think the majority are. If they wanted to be, they are anyway. And I think that comes from, giving the impetus to the players to kind of create their own environment and create their own kind of way of thinking of the game. And as a panel, we did that. And you kind of, when you leave that environment, you kind of think, oh, I'm missing that. And that's where a lot of lads, and if you look at Mully and Joe, very successful in what they're doing, it's no coincidence. And you're looking at Rochi, and you're looking at Colin Riley coaching now. You're looking, I could go through, Paddy Mack was coaching, Barry Heffernan was with Mayo and underage and stuff like that. So 90% of the team going into coaching. And I think the management team enabled that by letting us kind of be player led and letting us kind of think about the game and how we can get the team a bit better and stuff like that. So that, like Tommy was brilliant that way, like I felt anyway. Yeah.
I'm going to jump over a small bit. I'm just trying to mix in and out between questions that I've prepared myself as well as questions that people have sent in. And one question actually came up twice was about superstitions. And again, I'll leave the floor open. Were you any superstitious, or is there any superstitions that were in the team that kind of stood out to you?
I don't think we were a superstitious group. In terms of, we weren't, I'd say we're typical of our time. Like, we all sat in our own spaces. Like sure, there was the Mully corner and there was the Moylesy, and I was always in a corner with certain other fellas. Do you know, Mully, you had one thing you should do. You can talk about it yourself if you want.
That was a pre-match routine. I wasn't superstitious.
No, I was about to say it wasn't superstition. No, definitely not. But yeah, we were just, no, I don't think we were a superstitious group. No. And, in terms of the Mayo thing in either, that wouldn't have been in our, when you're younger, Ryan, everything is possible. Young players normally don't carry the baggage of older players who have been through certain experiences and maybe know the pitfalls as much. So I think we were very carefree and went at it, not really worried about stuff like that. That's my opinion. Yeah.
I'm as well to jump in there in relation to superstition. I'm not a superstitious person, just that it was a bit of a pre-match routine, but it wasn't just an All Ireland final pre-match routine. It was a challenge game pre-match routine. I just had a habit that just had to, how's a nice way? I just had to empty the contents of my stomach before I go out on the pitch. Otherwise, because there was an embarrassing situation when I was with the Mayo minors, with Mayo under 21s, where I suppose it was my early days, and I just got caught on the pitch doing it. But, well, I didn't get caught. I done it on the pitch, but I won't get caught again doing it. So I just found that it's a habit I have in relation to. I suppose I was supposed to I was spitting, and initially then I make myself sick. So rather than going and doing it on the pitch, I just used to do it in dressing rooms before I go on the pitch. So it's not a superstition, I think it's just a pre-match routine. Not sure.
I think that's the closest thing, Mully, we had to a pre-match routine was hearing you and anyone knew that came into the group. We'd be wondering what's going on in there, and we'd be just looking, will you stop? That's just the way we prepare. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I am glad he clarified which way it went, though, because he says I just emptied the stomach, and he didn't say which kind of way. So when he got sick at the end there, I was going to go jump in to help you just in case you left it.
Yeah, just
open
in case.
Interpretation.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's hoping you were at it, Damien, though. Michael mightn't have woken up before the game at all.
Yeah, well, look, some people mightn't have noticed whether I did or not.
I'd say we'd have missed you, Moylesy. Someone had to do the running.
You spoke about, so before the game, you went up on the bus. Did you stay up the night before?
Yeah, we stayed up and out. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go, Moylesy.
No, go ahead.
No, look at we did. We stayed in Maynooth. I don't know what the college is in Maynooth College itself. We bunked up to a room, and in relation to Enda Lavelle was with me. So I had entertainment for the night, and he kept me entertained with chat and pre-match. I don't know about pre-match routine. He was telling me something lately that he realised when he was lying on the bed or something that he was lying. And he got wrong with the sheet, and he was lying on some sort of rubber mat, and he was wondering why he couldn't sleep till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, till he realised that he was underneath the sheet, that he should be on top of the sheet, something like that. So I found that funny, but didn't stop him from talking anyway. So yeah, look at the night before we did a very light session. I think then there was there was a choice. I think there was, I don't know, I think the Xbox or whatever the equivalent of the Xbox was 20 years ago. I think there's some video games or something was there, lads. And I think there was a video. We watched a film the night before as well.
Willie Beeman. What's that film? Was it Any Given Sunday?
Any Given Sunday, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so it was good film for a night before for an All Ireland final to get guys focused. But it was from the college itself, and please jump in, lads, help me out because I don't remember much of it.
No, it'd be the same. The film, yeah. Sorry, go on, Joe.
No, sorry. My thing around that is, again, it's where the management team was ahead of their time for me. So we stayed away from all the, like, we weren't in a hotel. There was no one allowed in near us, only ourselves. In fairness, that's where kind of, Pather and H, who'd be two very funny, they played football in Steeped and Crossmolina, they came with us, and they provided a lot of light entertainment for fellas that might have needed it, and they were just generally good crack. So they were ahead of the time, and they kept us away. Like, you can imagine yourself, Ryan, it was a mob. It was crazy now, Maynooth the night before. It was absolutely up around there. So we were kept away from all that. We were kind of locked away behind the seminary, as I said. It was like when Preach Place, I think it was. And the thing for me, though, was we'd all our bags sorted and all the logistics done like you'd see nowadays. But 20 years ago, it was unheard of. So we had someone that we just left our suits, we left all our gear bags. All we brought with us on the morning was just grabbed your gear bag and out the door onto the bus. And everything else was just taken care of. And I remember afterwards thinking how, and probably reflecting since, how organised they were as a group. Like, all we had to get up that morning was eat your breakfast if you were able. Do you know what I mean? I think we had a bit of lunch, and then it was your gear bag, and away you went. So I think it was a masterstroke by the management, I have to say, the way they set us up that weekend and where we stayed. So yeah, that's what I thought.
Michael, do you want to jump in?
I think the lads have covered it all. I think it was well thought out. And I think when we're talking about Pather and P. Howley, I know they added to the entertainment and all that, but I'd say they did a lot of the kind of planning with the management team as well, and they looked after the small little parts there that let the management focus on the football for a lot part of it. Like, so it was just a very cohesive management team, extended management team that did very well. And those are things you don't even think about that Joe's mentioned, like, but you only think about afterwards. You're kind of going, oh, we didn't even have to, think about all these things. They were all done for us, and that just makes it easy. It's like you were just focused on the football. Like, so look, it's small things that make big differences.
And like the night before an All Ireland final, Damien, you said there you were rooming in with Enda, and you were up until 2 or 3 in the morning. And like Michael and Joe, I go to you now, like, how sleeping the night before an All Ireland final, I'm sure it's going through your head. I wonder what's going to happen tomorrow. I better do this, better do that. Do you remember did you sleep well the night before?
As far as I can remember, I was rooming with Kieran Mack, so I was just told to go to sleep, and I just went to sleep. That was it. That was the end of it. I'm nearly sure I was rooming with them because we were watching the video beforehand, and next thing I'm going to sleep, and I was right. Whether I was going to sleep or not, I was asleep. I'm nearly sure I did. It was either himself or Colin Murray. I definitely shared with him one of the All Ireland finals. I thought it was the one we won, but I'm not sure. But yeah, look, it was just a thing that you were just in a place that was there, and as Joe said, it wasn't fancy or anything else. It was just what it was needed to be. And I don't have much recollection. I remember getting up the next morning, going for a walk, and seeing Mully and all them over the flyby or the fly pass, whatever you call it, over the motorway, and just standing up having a chat. And it just seemed to fly. We were kind of just kicking the ball around and passing the ball around and stuff like that. So it just seemed to be relaxed. That's what I liked about it. It was just relaxed. There was no overthinking it. We were there to do a job, and that was it.
There's one thing, Moyles, I'm going to come in there on the morning of the All Ireland final. When you mentioned in relation to the walk, when you went to the walk and the flyover, there was 6 or 7 or maybe 8 lads. I know. I think the 2 of you were in it, and McD was in it. Colin Riley was in it. I think Pather, Rochi could have been in as well. Just it was soccer touches around the outside of the bus. I don't know. Can you remember?
Oh yeah, I remember
it. It was absolutely fun. It was one touch. And the ball did not hit the ground. Now, obviously, I wasn't there as part of it. I was just on the watch on. But it was fantastic. Do you know what I mean? It just shows how you were switched on, how guys were actually switched on with one touch. And his bags are all around the place, and the bus was there. It never hit a bag. No one ever tripped. It never hit the bus. It was so under control. It was awesome. And it went on for about, I'd say, easily the best part of 10 minutes.
Yeah, I remember that. All right, yeah. It's amazing what you remember. I remember now that you said it, but I don't remember it until you said it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just going off the different, you're all speaking very highly of the management, and rightly so. Just something in terms of the different approaches that you spoke about, Jared Cunningham bringing a different approach with the earlier days of sort of sports psychology. In that, there was a clip that I saw. I could be wrong. It might have been the 2000 county final. It could have been 02 or 03. There was a clip where Barry Heffernan puts the ball down on the tee. Stephen Rochford makes a run from corner back and kicks the ball off the tee and sends it out to Pat the Guard on the far side. I'd never seen it before. Like, just something I was like, how have I never seen this move before? Was there anything not necessarily like that, but did you have any sort of plans going into games, any sort of tactics that just kind of clicked and worked for you?
If I can
go first, Moyles. Yeah.
No, but I was just going on that point as well. Like, and again, when I go with kind of the stuff there, and I think it was on Mully's point that it was very player led. Like, Rachi would talk to Barry and would come up with this and try and find different ways and because Barry was one of the best keepers in Ireland. Absolutely unbelievable. And if anyone that looks at him in that find that not just the quality of the saves that he was able to take it into his chest, but his kickouts wouldn't be as long as probably he would have liked. Like, they were accurate. So, like, as a midfielder and with Jimmy, like, we would have scenarios worked out, but like teams would always see, there's only so many things you can do. So then Rachi and Francis Costello was there at the time, Colin Riley, Tom Nallen, Mully, the backs would go away at themselves and they would come up with ways of doing it. And I remember when you're thinking, do we have little things? We always, like, Barry used to dig up the pitch a good bit to get a good mound of dirt to get underneath the ball, to get a bit of distance on it. But you couldn't do that in Croke Park. They'd stopped that the year before. You couldn't dig up the ground or something. I don't know. There was something that came in. So I don't know if it was himself and Jonathan. The boys can jump in if they know this. He went with a water bottle and it was filled with sand. So he could make the mound up, and Corky kept coming in stamping down the sand every time he used to make a mound on it. Like, but he'd a Lucasade Sport bottle like for water, but he used to just come and put the sand down on it to build up the mound because the ref wouldn't let him kick it up. Like, but they were just smart things, they were just very intelligent players and very intelligent management and small little things like that. I just thought that was brilliant when I heard it afterwards. I didn't even know they were doing it. Like,
I think the thing for me was Moyles is, we were player led, and I think part of Jarlath's, and Tommy's maybe genius or smarts as well was probably recognising that there was a lot of football intelligence within the group. And I know most of the boys would have been, would have had this scenario where you get a phone call from Jarlath and it'd be like, Jarlath was no football genius. Like, he'd tell you himself, sure, Jesus, Jarlath's kind of genius was in his humility. He'd ring players and he'd go, oh, just we're playing these. Kind of what's important. Do you know what I mean? And he'd say to you go and watch that video, will you? These fellas and whatever else. And he'd assess what you told him back, and then he'd implement it on the training ground or whatever. So it was very much a collaboration in terms of, like you said, Rachi doing that stuff. That was stuff they came up with themselves, whatever else. And so, yeah, I think there was a great trust there between the management and the players in terms of, there's a lot of football intelligence here. We'll talk to the boys about certain stuff and see what their thoughts on it. And I think the management in general were very humble. They were very humble individuals. So I think that played a big part, that kind of trust from the management group to the players and back up again.
Yeah, just the only thing I'll add to that is, and you mentioned the last word there, Joe, is the trust. It was the trust element that the management with the players and the players back up as well. We trusted each other to no wins, and look, we got rewarded with the results. But in relation to that kick out, Rachi would do that from time to time, and now there'd be some of us that wouldn't even think of doing something like that. Even out our hands we worn would we go fast. But look at Colin Riley was another man who would take a few kickouts as well for every now and again, just off the cuff as well, if we wanted to go along from time to time. But it was an instant thing. The guys knew exactly when to do it and why it should be done. And look, it was good. It was good when it worked.
If we go to let's call it the homecoming now, coming in on the team bus, or if you're the cavalcade at the time, just to get similar to your your instant memories of the game itself, your memories of coming into Crossmolina with the trophy, carrying it in over into the town itself. I'll start with you again, Joe. What are your memories?
Ryan, that was a 3-hour bus journey that took 8. Right, so that was just that day. Yeah, the final lived with me forever, and rightfully so. But the day after lived with me forever, nearly as special. Like, we left Maynooth and we came down the road, and it was next thing. Every town kind of west of the Shannon, probably not west, but definitely since we got to Mayo, there was the cattle trailer up, or the old haulage trailer was put up, and every town it was stop, out, get onto the up on the trailer, and a speech and whatever else. So we were supposed to take 4 hours, and so we arrived in at the darkness, and it was surreal, right? Like, someone, my wife would be looking at you on Facebook and these sort of things. I'm not any social media, and she was showing something's up, and it has the bus coming into Crossmolina. And if you see where the Marian Shrine in, as anyone knows, Crossmolina is, and when you just look at the crowd that's there, like, this population of the Crossmolina, I think, was 1,500, and I think there's 5,000 estimated in around the Marian Shrine that night. Right back, like, look, it's as close as you're ever going to get to being, famous. That's what I'd say. It's the closest you're ever going to get. Well, for me anyhow. Let us speak for themselves. It's hard to put it into words. That's the reality. For me, it was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, really.
I suppose I'll jump in. So, Moyles, in relation to that, yeah, look at it, it's unreal. The bus journey, we're coming into Crossmolina, and the throngs of people, and the fire is lit on the side of the road, and just trying to, that slow process, getting the whole way back into Crossmolina. And look, I suppose we were privileged. We were privileged to play with a group of fantastic footballers. But we were in the bubble, and at the time, we didn't realize what it meant to our family and friends and neighbours. And I saw that clip just there this week of unseen footage. I got an email from the club, and just there was a link on it, and I hadn't seen that before in relation to that footage. I saw some years and years ago. All right, it's just a homecoming, and it was only then I was actually realizing what it actually meant to our family, our friends, our neighbours, and they only wanted a bit of us. They were so proud to welcome us home, and we didn't realize that then. We do now. We do, yeah. And even when we all went up on, as Joe says, the back of the trailer in Crossmolina, and just how proud Dr. Mickey was just to call each and every one of our names out on it. Like, Dr. Mickey worked so hard for the Crossmolina club, the grassroots of the club, the county. You know what I mean? Nationally, he worked so hard, but how proud he was just to welcome us back to Crossmolina. You could hear it in his voice, and it kind of hit me when I actually saw that. Was yesterday, the day before. I said, look, I didn't see that before. I didn't realize that before, but just people wanted a bit of us, and we were kind of in our own bubble still with the euphoria of the day before. It was kind of just really all passing us by, and we didn't really get the vibe. While it was just surreal, there's no doubt about it, but we didn't realize how proud people were of us. I personally missed that point. I just look back now as an old man and see it as Jesus, yeah. That was fantastic. It's phenomenal. Yeah. Do I know what I did achieve at the time? I did. There's no doubt about it. But now, maybe older and wiser, I feel now what the fans and our family and friends felt then. I feel it now. So from that little clip alone, it was just fantastic to see it, and just to see the euphoria in the town was fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think I can put that in better words than what he has already. But like the key words that he said there about privilege, it was an absolute privilege. It was an absolute privilege to be involved with the players that were involved with, but to do it for Crossmolina as well. And I remember going up on the trailer and coming into town and shaking my head, going like, where's all these people coming from? Like as Joe said, like it was 4 to 5 times the population of Crossmolina. They had a video screen up on Toland's Butcher's side wall of the game going on, like crazy stuff back in 2000. Like, so you went up on the trailer. I remember Lee coming down off the trailer, and in the corner of the trailer there was a cup. Like, so like I just would better been this. Like, it wasn't even about the cup, or it wasn't even about having an All Ireland title. It was about what we did for Crossmolina at the time and putting it on the map. And we were known. except for Tom calling us a little village. I think he got a bit of abuse about that. We're going back to the village, I think, in his speech that he got a bit of abuse about. But look,
No harm from.
Yeah, we went to the, a few of the local pubs and stuff like that and met people, as many people as you could. As Molly said, it's only now kind of you realise how important it was. I know I went up to the Dolphin and I think there was a gang of us dancing and we had these t-shirts on with All Ireland final on, and we're very proud of them, obviously, like with Crossmolina tops. And of course, in the old days, you take them off and you swing around your head because you were allowed to do that. Mine went missing for a while, so Mick Welch, Lord of Mercy, came down with an old raggedy t-shirt, I'd say, that was there cleaning windows for about 3 or 4 years. But I eventually found out that he got Austin O'Malley, who was down from Newsburg, who was part of, who was down with me in college since, but he was going around wearing it. So, it just shows that the top even itself had some significance into it. But it was very surreal. And as Molly said, it's just a privilege. It was just, and we look back at it now, it just, I suppose, encompasses everything that we were trying to do and the realization that we actually got there,
As we got 5-6 minutes left in this Zoom call, is there anything you'd like to add to it, or just before we wrap it up?
Not in particular, Ryan. I think we're just very lucky. We're just lucky that the group came together. And I think there's a man there that probably should be mentioned. And I know when I mentioned his name, the boys would go, well, definitely Moyles. Mully was kind of from a different half parish, maybe. But there was a lad there, a man called John Cosgrove, who was a national school principal. And he was a guy that would have been instrumental in kind of building, the love of Gaelic football into a lot of us. And he had a lot of his hands on a national school and under 12 teams and whatever. And yeah, he was a man that would have been instrumental at the very early stages of developing a lot of them footballers. And that stuff kind of gets lost now because we've kind of seen it in our own club since. If you don't have good people in them younger years, it makes a massive difference, And so maybe give a shout out to John there. He had a big part to play, although it being a long time earlier with a lot of them players who came through. So.
Yeah, no, good point, Joe. And I suppose another man we might have missed is on the jersey there behind you. AdTech was Porrick Loft was our main sponsor at the time. Just when I see the jersey sit there, look at, he was very good to the club and took good to us as well. Along with, I suppose, a lot of businesses around Crossmolina. I'm not going to mention one, but a lot of businesses around Crossmolina were very, very good to us. And we realised that when we, to the point that Moyles said earlier on in relation to going on holidays, it was the business and the clubs and the supporters that helped us to go for that holiday in relation to getting ready for an Ireland final, and it worked out in the end. But look at this, people have to dig their hand in the pockets to pay for these buses, to pay for these weekends away, hotel nights before games, and look, we really appreciate all the sponsorship we got from all the people.
Yeah, just on Joe's point, John Cosgrove, I know for me, give a love of the game, and we were very lucky. We'd have Peter Mangan and lads coming in that were playing for the club at the time, coaching us as well within the school, which was massive. Do you know what I mean? But I know, and I mentioned earlier on about us winning the under-21 title, it was Josie Moffat that took us over that time, and Liam was our coach, and it was really progressive. Liam was just finger on the pulse of how our football team was going, and that was our first county title, and it was an under-21A county title. So I suppose that gave us a big springboard. I know Mully said earlier on about the defence, and I think in the earlier parts of the year we scraped over Westmeath. Apologies. We played Swinford. We're okay there. Kind of at the early parts we had a bit. It was our defence really that was to the fore for an awful lot of it. And I know with Crossmolina, people look at Kermack and people look at Joe Kane and Paul McGuinness and Johnny Leonard, brilliant forwards. We had really, really good forwards, but our defensive system was really top notch. When you look at Colin Riley and Stephen Rochford and Damien Mulligan, Jared O'Malley, Patrick McAndrew. And if I can mention one person as well, when you said about memories of the final and things come flooding back after a while when you say about it, but Jared O'Malley was playing on that team all throughout, and so was Francis Costello. Francis Costello was unlucky to lose his place just at the latter end, and when I look back in those games in the early, Francis Costello was unbelievable, and still was there in the final, played a massive part of it. And Jared O'Malley, because he went on duty in the Lebanon, missed out in the starting place probably for the All-Ireland final. But as Molly was saying, just after Colin and Corky scored that goal, and the ball was hopped up for a short kick out, and it bounced all over the place. It hit off, I don't know, Molly, did it hit off your shoulder? It was Jared O'Malley that grabbed it, that kicked it out to Kieran Mack. So he played a massive role. Even though he wasn't around, he still played a massive role in us getting over the line. So, look, I just think those people are very important to. Everybody was important in it, and the likes of Thomas Loftus and Johnny Leonard were the elder statesmen. And you can say about our youth and our enthusiasm and all that, but they guided us through, you know, times when we may be a bit headless and stuff like that. So it was a brilliant time. Everything came right at the right time, but there was an awful lot to it that when you look back on, we were lucky to have the people that we had around us.
A great point there about the elder statesmen in relation to Johnny Rep and Lofty. They kept us on our toes, and they also, Johnny Rep kept a few other fellas on their toes as well. we know what that means.
Yeah.
Look, lads, I think that's it's going to cut us off now in about 30 seconds or so. So just want to say thanks to three for coming on to the podcast, and I want to wish you the best luck as well. And as you're all still continuing your coaching roles as well, I want to wish you the best luck in that. And yeah, just thanks again.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us, Ryan.
Enjoyable. Thanks for that chat.
Cheers, lads. Good to see you, lads. Hopefully the 21st party we'll have a party.